Welcome back. You're watching Stock Picks. Today we look into some of the major players in food production and packaging sector with a particular focus on Libstar, Rhodes Foods and RCL. Joining us with that analysis is Chantal Marx from FNB Wealth and Investments. Chantal, a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Hi, yes, it's great to be here. And I'm really excited to talk about the smaller food producers. So basically not Tiger Brands or AVI, because I think that each of them offers such a unique value proposition for South African investors. And we've had some action there over the last few months with RCL unbundling Rainbow.
Let's start off by speaking about RCL's decision to unbundle Rainbow. I always wonder what happens when you unbundle your star child. So let's talk about that and what we've seen emerge.
So it depends on what you would term the star child for RCL. So I would actually have termed the groceries business the star child. That's the old food court business. And that's really the more defensive part of that business. I think the main reason they unbundled Rainbow is because it's super cyclical and it doesn't necessarily fit into the rest of that broader business. That said, the same can be said for the sugar business. I think that also adds a big cyclical component to their earnings, but that, of course, is a lot larger, and I think will have a much bigger impact in terms of their market positioning on the JSE.
I want to speak about their market positioning here because, of course, like you're saying, they are one of the smaller players, but also defensive there. Where would we place it, maybe if we do compare it to its peers, Libstar and Rhodes?
So it's there or thereabouts. These businesses are all of a similar size, and that's why I think that they are the most appropriate competitors to look at in this space. I think for RCL, the differentiator is the fact that they have that sugar business, so that makes them different to the other two. And they all have different areas of expertise. I think for RCL, there's a bit more of a soft commodity angle in there as well, more staple foods, if you like. And I think that's kind of what makes them a little bit different. With sugar, the last few years have actually gone quite well for them, and it's been quite supportive for RCL as a group. Similar to the poultry story, we have had industry master plans published around those businesses, some protectionism measures introduced there. And I think that there's really a commitment from government's perspective to protect and incubate that industry. Hopefully these things remain in place and we do see stability in the sugar price, but it can still lead to quite a volatile returns outcome for RCL.
And of course, another interesting part of RCL, of course, you've mentioned it was the listing of Rainbow Chicken and removing that. And I'm keen to find out then the value that then sits there versus what we're seeing in terms of the valuation. Where are you with that one?
So it's trading more or less around fair value, in my opinion. So I think probably at the bottom end of a fair value range. The Rainbow listing was actually quite successful. I wouldn't have expected Rainbow to do so well upon listing, and that is mainly because it is such a volatile industry that they operate in. And they're now trading at quite the premium to the likes of an Astral, and I don't necessarily think they demand that premium, although they'll probably argue otherwise. But I think it's been a successful unbundling for them. Now it's just a case of whether or not the rest of the cogs in the wheel can really start turning quite quickly, and they can possibly benefit from some of the cyclical and structural growth tailwinds that we would want to see coming out of South Africa over the next few years.
One of my favorite things about RCL is also the pet food business that seems to be emerging slowly there. I'm always surprised at how much people love their pets and how much they're willing to spend a lot of money. And really being in pet food and not having to scramble for a business as this industry grows, I think has been great for RCL.
Yes, and pet ownership in South Africa is still increasing, and it's increasing quite strongly. And people feel that they want to give their pets value for money, but a high quality type of pet food. And that is where I think RCL has a really strong foothold in the industry. We've also seen some of the retailers enter pet food as well. So I think that the fact that you are getting larger retailers becoming involved here could actually support big producers in that space like RCL going forward. It's certainly one of the areas of their business that I really like.
Very interesting indeed. Let's move on now and touch on Libstar. They're also an interesting business. In the past, I've heard analysts say they didn't like how Libstar guided versus how they performed. I've also, heard about possible corporate action emerging for Libstar. I'm keen to get your thoughts on this business.
Yes, so when they listed, they kind of said that they were going to stick to the contract manufacturing model, and they had made lots of small acquisitions, and they were going to keep those businesses quite separate with separate management teams and separate kind of back office functions. But over the last few years, it has come to the fore that this is not the optimal way to manage that business. They need to become more integrated. They need to take advantage of the fact that they have a really high tech and very advanced manufacturing capability, but with lots of excess capacity. I think the management team is now fully on board with what analysts have been saying about this business for the longest time, and that they're really focusing on trying to merge some of the duplicated functions at a head office level. They're looking to fill capacity, and they've also invested in some of their own brands. One of the brands that I really like in that stable is Lancewood.
Same.
I don't know if
Same.
that was yours as well. But I mean, a focus on some of these stronger, more premium brands, I think, will continue to help them quite a bit. And then the other favorite thing within the Libstar stable, and I don't know if you knew about this, but they make the schnitties for Woolies. So chicken schnitzels is kind of their vibe, and it's not only for Woolies, but it's for lots of big kind of restaurants and food chains as well. And they do that kind of thing, which I think that they are really really good at. So kind of focusing on the contract manufacturing side, but at the same time building your own brand and making sure that your manufacturing capacity is sufficiently full so that you can manufacture and in the most optimal way possible, thereby expanding margins over time. Centralizing some of those duplicated functions will also help their margins over time. I see that stock has gone absolutely nowhere over the last year, but I think it's a really interesting prospect, particularly because management is so driven to make this new plan work.
What happened with Denny's mushrooms? I think that's an important one here. This also used to be a unique brand they housed within the stable. Chantal, what do we make of that? Because I don't think, that's something that all food retailers make, that mushroom business. Keen to understand how that added value, or maybe didn't.
Yes, so I don't think it really added value. So that would have a farming component attached to it as well. And I think that's where a lot of the major drama came from. And also, you can't really brand mushrooms. An old mentor of mine always said about clover, you can't really brand milk. It's a commoditized product. And I think that it's the same thing when it comes to mushrooms. So you can drive that brand to a certain extent. But I don't think that consumers are particularly loyal to a certain brand of milk or mushrooms. So I think that business is still a pretty sizable business. I do think that there's still value in it, but I don't foresee it being one of the major drivers for Libstar's valuation and re-rating over time.
Interesting. Also, when we've spoken about Lancewood, I'm also quite a fan of that Lancewood brand. I see it also as a premium brand. As we've seen consumers buy down, I'm wondering, if a brand like that kind of sees a bit of a shift, or are loyalists like you and me keeping it going?
So there are two things that can happen when consumers trade down. It depends on the product of what the product quality of what is available down the line. So you can either go ahead and buy your Lancewood branded product, and if you are, say, trading down at Checkers, you're still going to be buying Lancewood cheese, just with a different set of packaging around it. If you are going to trade down and buy cheese elsewhere, you might get a product that is not to that quality, and you'll go back to buying what you are used to. It's also quite cyclical. People do like to buy premium products when they are under a little bit of less when they are under less financial strain. So I would expect consumers to return to kind of premium brands once economic conditions improve, or hopefully improve over time. But yeah, I mean, the way that their business is set up, Lancewood isn't only in the Lancewood branded cheese. They really kind of produce and market for other brands as well.
What I think is my favorite part about this is, of course, that private label business. I mean, they make the fit cooks for Woolworths. They make, some of that very interesting stuff you've mentioned, the schnitzel there. And I'm also wondering here, if this could also actually just be their strength. The private labeling behind the scenes. They've got a few of those products that they bring to the fore, but that becomes what maybe RCL has in pets or in sugar. That becomes Libstar's little specialty.
So it is one of their specialties, and I think certainly they have quite a command in terms of the products they do provide into the retail and even the wholesale channels. But it's not unique to Libstar. RCL, I don't know if you know this, but that unicorn cake from the Woolworths,
Oh,
that is actually produced by RCL. Similarly, Rhodes also has a big Woolies portfolio where they actually brainstorm, create, and sell into Woolworths together with the Woolworths creatives as well. So it's not unique to Libstar. The range that they'll be providing to Woolworths will be unique to them, but it's not them. It's not only them that actually do this.
I love this, Chantal, because of course many people love Woolworths, but nobody really knows how it happens. We just know that the fantastic stuff are all on the shelf, and we get to find them. And finding out that these businesses are behind, I think, is encouraging and very interesting. Let's talk about Rhodes and what you like about that one.
Yeah, so I mean, Rhodes, I think, is the most diversified among these. They've got quite a sizable export business as well, which can be cyclical at times and dependent on the rand, but it has done very well for them over the last few years. And then they have two areas of the business that I really, really like. I mean, I actually like a lot about this business. The share price will reflect that the rest of the market also likes a lot about the business, particularly over the last year or so. But I really like the fact that they are big in pies. I think the pie category is a growing category, not only in forecourts, but when we're looking at grocery retailers as well. Woolies pies, by the way, are made by Rhodes Food Group. So their pie business is quite sizable. They've made some really strong acquisitions there that they've integrated beautifully. And I think it's a growing category that spans both groceries as well as the takeaway segment of the market. And then I like the fact that they've got good old bully beef in there. So I think that this is a kind of a staple that kind of works across the cycle, because people are quite loyal to that brand specifically. I don't think it's something that is easily or exactly replicable. So really like that for them. And then, of course, they've got market leadership positions in most of these kind of fruits and vegetables that you see on your shelves. They've been a real competitor to Koo, and I think that they've done fantastically well in terms of putting something on the shelves that is high quality and that builds brand loyalty as well.
I always laugh, Chantal, because I love a pie. And sometimes, most people act like they don't have a pie because of how messy it is to eat one. But with the Rhodes dominating this, and I think actually as people also continue to buy down, still looking for a nice treat outside of the house, and maybe a pie is where you stumble on. Do we know just how well this pie business performs?
Yes, so their pie business has grown quite nicely. I mean, as I mentioned, they've complemented it by making several acquisitions over the last years, Magpie the being the most recent one. And they have integrated it very well, which means that they've seen margins expanding in that business, and their top line growth in that space has been quite decent. I think it's really come at a time where there's been a lot of pressure on the South African consumer, but this category continues to continue to grow throughout that period. I think sometimes when we look at consumer preferences, things tend to become more structural than just cyclical. And certainly for the pie category, and I mean, we're not talking about the fast food industry right now, but I know that pizzas have had the exact same kind of structural growth story behind them, just because consumer preferences have changed. People have opened themselves up to something outside of the chicken and burger category, and similar to pizzas, I think pies will continue to grow going forward.
I'm also going to speak about exports for these companies. I know Libstar has quite a bit of exporting that they do here there. Let's talk about also RCL and RFG and their capability within the groups.
Yes, I mean, it tends to be focused mostly on the SADC region. I think for RFG specifically, they don't even talk about a South African business and a SADC business. They actually just talk about their regional business, which will include our neighboring countries. They, I think, have the biggest and most prominent international exporting business that goes outside of the African continent. So they have quite a few clients in the Middle East as well as in Europe that stock their product. Most of it would be in the deciduous fruit space. So that is a space where production isn't really that prevalent globally. You'll have certain countries that have expertise in a certain product category, and RCL does particularly well when one of those product categories when you've got a supply issue with one of the product categories. A few years ago, for example, there was a failed peach harvest in Greece, and they did very, very well with their peach exports. So that's kind of the space that they play in. It's a little bit different to RCL and Libstar, who will typically export kind of more staple products, more products that are commoditized rather than something like the deciduous fruits.
Well, that's it, Chantal. For the benefit of our retail investors, I would like to rate them. I'm wondering if it's possible. Like you said, they're very similar, but same, but different, I think, when we look at valuations as well.
Yes, I mean, Rhodes Food Group or RFG has performed very well over the last year, but I think it's still the highest quality pick in the sector, and the rating still doesn't look very demanding. Still trading on a forward PE kind of in the mid-single digits, offering a really solid dividend yield. So that would still be my high quality first pick in the sector, followed by Libstar, because I do think that the management team is really putting in an effort to make that business more efficient and to clean up that portfolio. And then RCL, not because they did anything wrong, but we have realized some really good value from the rainbow unbundling. But I think that there's a lot of uncertainties in that business, particularly related to the cyclicality of sugar.
Very interesting indeed. Thank you so much for taking us through these ones, Chantal. Definitely neglected stocks here. Thank you for your time. That was FNB's Chantal Marx.